Welcome to the Our State Book Club podcast. I'm your host, New York Times bestselling author and North Carolina native Wiley Cash. In today's episode, we return to Carrboro, North Carolina, where we sit down with author Georgann Eubanks and photographer Donna Campbell to discuss their latest book, The Fabulous Ordinary, Discovering the Natural Wonders of the Wild South. We'll talk about what it means to travel the region together while exploring its native phenomena and the glories and perhaps the challenges of their long literary partnership. Georgann, thank you for joining us again. And Donna, welcome. Thank you so much for doing this with me. So Georgann, after writing about authors, you have 3 books, the literary trails we talked about in the last episode. You kind of shifted your writing focus a little bit to things, cuisine, animals, wild spaces. What precipitated that change of focus?
Well, the Literary Trails project took 10 years. It was a commission from the State Arts Council. I developed a relationship with UNC Press, and they said, so what's next? And I said...
All writers want to hear that question from an editor. What's next?
Yeah. So Donna and I had some arrests because that was a big project. And then we've always made it part of our routine to find restaurants that are not chains. One of our rules is no chain restaurants. And we said, let's eat our way across North Carolina. And I, at the time, had just harvested figs from a tree that I planted in Carrboro that was really doing well. And I became fascinated with the idea of the ephemeral nature of figs, that they're so fragile, you can't buy them fresh very often. And they're a wonderful thing you have to wait for. And the animals that come to feed under the fig tree, we have turtles, we have foxes, we have birds and squirrels. So I thought, if I can come up with a raft of North Carolina foods that speak to our cultural history and that are only available in a certain time, that we have to wait for them, and that's what makes them special, then we'd have a book. So we sort of back and forth about what could it be, and we had contacts, of course, from the other books across the state, and that's how the month of their ripening started.
One thing I love about your career is there is such a desire to preserve and to arrive at the right moment for something to happen, with the ripening book, but also with these literary places. We talked in the last episode about you going and there being no there. So Donna, for you, you have a whole career in television and film and video. And then Georgann says, here's a camera. We're doing stills now, and talk about having to wait and preserve, and you get that moment to take the shot. What is it like to go from photographing places for the literary trails, which are relatively static? You can have all day shooting Connemara. You can be there all day and get the perfect shot, to photographing food and fruits, and then animals in wild spaces where there's nothing static, where everything is changing by the second. What was that transition like?
It was a surprise for me to do that. I didn't grow up thinking I was going to be a photographer. I didn't train to be a professional photographer. So it has been a job of necessity. I work as the sidekick, But the best part about it, regardless of what we're shooting, is that I'm having the experience just like Georgann's readers get to have the experience. I get to show up in the situation and discover a new creature or a new plant or a new food or whatever it is that we're talking about. And let's just say Donna is a total pro at interviewing. And when you've got 2 people handling a situation with somebody who may be really nervous about being interviewed and having to talk about a topic, whether it's food or nature or whatever, she's so good at putting people at ease. And so it's a pretty good teamwork thing in terms of the research part, not just the photography.
And I imagine, I mean, what you just said about, you did the literary trails for 10 years. So when it came time to do other projects, you had this Rolodex of communities where you had left an impression through relationships with people. So it was easy to call in those relationships. And I imagine doing that as a twosome instead of a loner. You come with somebody and you already have a community when you arrive, and then the community expands. What has it been like for the two of you to kind of foster that community of people that, let's be honest, you probably would have never met, that you now know all across the state of North Carolina? And there's a lot of doors that you could walk into that, wouldn't have been there otherwise.
I grew up in North Carolina, and I thought I'd seen it all before I met Georgann. But in the course of the literary trails, we visited all 100 counties. I think we visited a library in at least one library in every county. And so, yes, we have met many, many people, but we've seen every nook and corner of the state, and it's been a great thing to do. And so after we did the food book, which was North Carolina, I said, well, now let's expand. So that was 6 states in the next book, which was on endangered plants. And of course, you can't interview plants. You can photograph them. But we met wonderful ecologists and conservationists and forest rangers and folks who took us out in the field again and taught us about the plants. And so we expanded our scope to include these 6 states. And then the new book, of course, is 7 states, and the next book's going to be 10. So, and every time we add connections to people who are ready to help us tell these stories and help us find the stories, because that's it. It's the story that counts. And I learned a lot from Donna, sometimes being the person who interviews folks when she's shooting the documentary.
Yeah, because I mean, you're not writing like a field guide. You're not writing a travel guide. You're writing stories about you going to these places where either, an author wrote about or lived or spent a amount of time there. But it's the story of you going there, the story of this place as it's unfolding. Do you feel the same compulsion, might be the wrong word, but maybe calling to preserve the natural aspects of North Carolina in the same way you did these cultural aspects with the places of where the writers had been? Is that all of a piece, or do you feel more pressure with the wildlife?
I think there's more pressure. I think, to be honest, climate change is here. We see it already in places that we visited for the last book. Things are changing in North Carolina. And so, yes, there's some urgency in that.
Yeah, absolutely. We will be right back with Georgann Eubanks and Donna Campbell.
Elon University is proud to support the Our State Book Club. In the same way great authors bring North Carolina stories to life, Elon is committed to fostering knowledge, creativity, and lifelong learning across our state. Discover how Elon University shapes thoughtful leaders at www.elon.edu.
We are back with author Georgann Eubanks and photographer Donna Campbell. So Georgann, The Fabulous Ordinary. You and Donna traveled around the Southeast and experienced firsthand phenomena that happen only in certain locations and happen infrequently in certain locations, some of them annual phenomenon. But you also met really interesting people and really kind people and very generous, very intelligent people. Can you tell us about maybe a character from the natural world in your book that really resonated with you, and then a character from the human world that really resonated with you?
Wow. Well, we saw otters in Florida on the Itchitucknee River. and we were working with a forest ranger, or the ranger for the state park. Actually, his father was a state park ranger. He's a state park ranger. I called him on the phone. I said, I want to see otters. Can you show me otters? I know they're on the river. I've read about it. He said, sure. I love, it's my favorite thing to do is to go down the river. Any day I go down the river is a good day. So he said, told us to meet him and so forth. And he was so kind. We were completely inexpert canoers. And Donna was trying to take pictures. I was trying to take notes. And pretty soon the canoe was going down the river sideways. And he knew, I think, where the otters were. So the whole thing was like a plot.
Yeah.
We saw birds, we saw turtles, we saw alligators. And it wasn't until the very end. He said, well, I hope we see some. And he knew we would. He was so kind. And then the otters showed up, and we were so excited. And we were able to sort of chase them across the river and find a way to stop in an eddy. And Donna shot video, and she shot photos. And the otters were completely just ignoring us. And they were so cute, and it was like the perfect day.
Sure.
It was a river that you could see the bottom. We could see fish right beside us. Like you could just reach down and grab
That's
a
incredible.
mullet.
Yeah.
That was pretty special, wouldn't you say?
What a character. I love those specialists. And Ron Rash, and y'all might have read it. It might be in the back of his paperback of Serena, where he talks about reaching out to specialists with questions, research questions. And the specialist always has one name, like, well, you want to talk with Dale. And then sometimes the specialists are put out, and there's no way you're ever going to be able to understand the depth of their knowledge to write about your little silly, novel. But then sometimes the specialists are supremely interesting and kind and characters. Absolutely. And you think, I am richer for the experience of you sharing this knowledge with me. And that's the story is this guy, that you think is going to be a different experience. So Donna, I am picturing, I was telling y'all during the break, my wife's a photographer, and the amount of gear that she lugs around to shoots at a restaurant. I cannot imagine lugging that gear around in a canoe or on a hike. We talked a moment ago about the challenges of time to capture the animal as it's breaking the surface, when there's the light to do it, But what are the challenges? What are the physical challenges of lugging that much gear into the wilderness? I mean, the essay collection opens with y'all in a blind, and you're able to get this amazing shot of a whooping crane.
It was right next to the parking lot.
Oh, okay. Well, that kills the suspense. But to have these like really fortuitous moments when you're encumbered by all this stuff that's expensive, what is that challenge like? That's a totally different challenge than it is for a writer.
It is a challenge, but thank God it's not 1965.
Yeah.
We really do have the benefit of digital photography, and I'm really glad about it.
Sure.
I also know that we don't have a lot of time usually. I'm lucky if I can get out of the car, if I can get Georgann to stop long enough for me to get out. Usually I just have to put the window down and hope for the best.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be silly about it. It's just that we don't take all that time for a formal setup.
Sure.
I hope that we're going to be I hope it's documentary photography, and that we're going to get the best shot we can in the moment. Because we don't have the time for that.
And because the photography is expensive to reproduce. So this new book has 35 photos, which I had to work hard to get, color photos. And hence the book is kind of expensive because of that. But, Donna always comes through with the shot, and we really only need one for the book. And then everything else is gravy, because when I do a presentation, I have lots of other photographs
Absolutely,
to use.
Yeah. And then for our event that we'll do at Farrington Village, September 4th, you're going to have those photos. Some of them that don't appear in the book, we're going to ask you to bring them, and we'll screen them in the back, and y'all can say, this is the moment we thought we were falling out of the canoe when she was photographing the otters, but we saved the equipment. So, y'all have traveled around a lot of really cool places where really amazing things happen. And to close out our episode, I would like you to share with our listeners and our viewers your top 5 places that may be unexpected or unknown, or maybe places that we all visit often but need to see in a way that captures our imagination and reminds us of how special it is.
Well, the title of the book is The Fabulous Ordinary. And I'm going to say emphasis on ordinary here because that really was the fun of this book,
Yeah.
is to go somewhere we've been before and see something that we haven't seen.
Sure.
And I don't know if that's the way you feel about it, but of the 5 places that first come to mind, I'm thinking of going down east to the Lake Pungo, where the tundra swans come in. And I wish you called this top 5 the top 5 things that every North Carolinian should do. That
Sure.
would be,
Yeah, that's a
that
better
would be
title. We'll call it
maybe
that.
okay. But that's something that I hadn't seen living here all these years. And
I didn't even know that place until I read the book. I didn't even know where that place was, and I certainly didn't know this was happening there. But tell us about it.
It happens every year from the first full moon in November to the first full moon in February.
Wow.
Thousands, maybe 50,000 swans fly into
From Siberia.
and Greenland.
God, that's amazing.
And it's overwhelming to stand there as a human and hear the sound of those swans and see their active. They don't care a thing about us. They're doing swan life, and it's remarkable.
Yeah.
And that's just one thing.
Setting out a light at my cabin in the Blue Ridge and collecting moths on a sheet and seeing who's really out there in the dark, and their gorgeous patterns. Some are just very tiny and some are large. I had a Polyphemus moth fly in the window of my car and land on the car seat, and it was just, look at that. And there are many more moths than there are butterfly species in North Carolina, a lot more, but we don't see them.
Yeah, because we have too many lights.
Right.
We did Leanne Hinyon's book about nighttime in Appalachia, and much of the book was about light pollution. And she says, nighttime for my teenager is different than nighttime for me. That's how quickly it's happening, that we have the loss of darkness and what it's doing to us and what it's doing to the natural world.
And the lightning bugs.
And the lightning
I
bugs.
was going to say the number 3 is we grew up seeing lightning bugs,
Sure.
fireflies.
I call them lightning bugs too.
Yeah, as children. And until we worked on this project, I did not know that there are how many species?
75
Different
known now,
Yeah.
and more waiting to be discovered if they live long enough.
And so if you can find a dark spot in the woods, you see this incredible show and synchronized fireflies. The good news is that it seems like people are more and more interested
Sure.
in having, and so that the lottery for the synchronized
The
fireflies
Smokies.
it's already sold out. I
Sure.
think, and people are just, dying to see these things. Well, they could see them right down the road. They can see them in their own backyard if they'll just, turn off
We
the
went
lights.
to a canyon in Alabama where these glowworms live in the moss that's dripping wet, and we hiked it down in pitch dark with 7 people, which was pretty scary because we'd been there in the daylight and saw how rough the terrain and how rickety the path and so forth. But this was something that really couldn't be photographed. I mean, some photographers have done, time lapse of these things, but this is one of those things you can't really capture.
Sure.
And so Donna was frustrated, and yet she was able to experience it without the pressure of trying to catch it.
Oh, that's interesting. I remember reading Sally Mann's memoir, Hold Still, about so much of her life was lived behind the camera, that some parts of her life, that's all she can remember is being behind the camera. When she thinks of her father, she thinks of photographing her father and not necessarily
Not as
as a being outside of the lens. So I
but it's
imagine
lucky
getting-
that she has photos.
Exactly. It's a double-edged sword.
Yeah,
That's right.
so-
It's a double-edged sword. Yeah. So I imagine experiencing that not without the burden of having to photograph it was an amazing experience. A couple more places. What are some more places?
Well, for me, it was the whooping crane, seeing the
Mhm.
whooping crane among the sandhill cranes And that was there are 650 whooping
And this is in Georgia,
cranes.
right?
No, it was Alabama.
Alabama, okay.
There are 650 whooping cranes left on the planet, and we saw 2 of them. And we wouldn't have known necessarily but for the photographers who were there, who come like a religion every year in January to photograph these and just to experience the noise and the clatter and the carrying on of these birds, which are ancient. You know, they're some of the oldest birds on the planet. But the whooping cranes were in there with the sandhill cranes, and that was such a thrill.
Yeah.
It was.
It felt like, I remember from my weekly reader as a kid reading that whooping cranes were disappearing, and I was mad as a 4th grader that I would never get to see them. And we did, and it just got all over me.
Yeah, I imagine so.
Number 5, can we go to number 5? And Our State magazine does a great job of covering the Blue Ridge Parkway, but I can't say enough about what a treasure it is for North Carolina to have, how many miles? 469 miles, and taking the time, which we have done, to drive from the north all the way down to Cherokee to find the elk who were out there bugling for us, just like they knew we were coming, and it was wonderful. But the Parkway took a real hit
Yeah.
in this past year, and I think people, especially in North Carolina, should find it in their hearts to hold up what's going on.
Sure,
over there.
absolutely. Call to action. Well, this has been so wonderful spending time with y'all. Thank you for doing this with me, and I'm really looking forward to our event in September.
Elon University believes in the power of stories to engage and inspire our community. That's why Elon is proud to sponsor the Our State Book Club, showcasing conversations with writers who reflect the heart of our state. Learn how Elon University is igniting discovery and dialogue in North Carolina at www.elon.edu.
From day one at Elon University, you're empowered. Engaged learning, meaningful mentorship, celebrated individuality. Transform your potential into purpose and become a leader the world needs at Elon University.
What might it be like underneath the sunrise in a state of flight? Coming back on me, it seems wonderful, the wandering mountain birds on a beach. Never moments ever wasted, turning away from your love. Honeybees, gardens of sweeter fruit, never tasted, no turning to other things. Will you be, will you seem? Sweeter fruit, never tasted, don't turn your back on me. Mountains pushing into the sea. Mountains